The air is thick with the weight of centuries as you step into a narrow corridor of weathered stone. Above you, carvings whisper in forgotten languages, their meanings lost to time. These aren't just passageways, they're frozen echoes of human obsession, puzzles etched into the earth by hands long turned to dust. Across 6 continents and 4,000 years, ancient civilizations built labyrinths not to confuse but to reveal. Some were spiritual gateways, others royal playgrounds, a few perhaps traps for forces we no longer understand. Today we'll walk where Babylonian priests once tread, trace patterns that Viking warriors believed could summon gods, and decode the hidden geometry that connects temples separated by oceans. Every twist in these 22 sacred mazes holds a story of kings and sacrifices, of stars mapped in stone, of secrets buried so deep even their builders forgot. Ready to lose yourself in order to find something extraordinary, the first turn lies just ahead. Beneath the golden sun of Crete lies a ruin that blurs the line between myth and reality, the sprawling Bronze Age Palace of Nossos. Its honeycomb of rooms, twisting passageways, and sudden dead ends feel less like a royal residence and more like a living puzzle. For over 3,000 years, storytellers have whispered of a monstrous half-man, half-bull lurking in its depths, the Minotaur, imprisoned in a labyrinth so cunning no one could escape. But here's the fascinating twist. When British archaeologist Arthur Evans uncovered Knossos in the early 20th century, he didn't find a maze of hedges or stone. Instead, he revealed a palace so dizzyingly complex, with staircases leading nowhere and rooms stacked like a hall of mirrors, that locals might have passed down its confusion as legend. The Grand Courtyard could have been the dancing ground where Athenian youths once performed ritual bull leaps, a deadly sport that might have fueled tales of man-eating beasts. And those storage rooms lined with giant clay jars, perfect for a storyteller's imagination to transform into cells holding sacrifices. Yet some researchers argue the real labyrinth hasn't been found at all, that it lies buried deeper, its true purpose encoded in frescoes of double-headed axes, the sacred symbol called the labyrinth, which may have given the labyrinth its very name. Every pottery shard, every faded mural asks us the same question. Were the Minoans building a palace or crafting a myth in stone? While the Labyrinth of Nossos pulses with ancient mystery, another sacred pattern lies waiting under the vaulted ceilings of medieval France. Step inside Chartres Cathedral, where sunlight streams through towering stained glass, casting kaleidoscope colors across a secret hidden in plain sight, a massive stone labyrinth spanning the nave's floor. Crafted in the 13th century, this 11-circuit path wasn't meant to confuse but to transform. Unlike the Minotaur's maze, there are no tricks here, just a single, unbroken line winding toward the center like a pilgrim's prayer. For those who couldn't journey to Jerusalem, this became their holy road. Some dropped to their knees, tracing every curve in quiet devotion, their physical struggle mirroring the soul's long path to grace. What's astonishing is the precision carved into these stones. The labyrinth's dimensions align with sacred geometry, its curves echoing the cathedral's rose windows, its circumference matching the west front's proportions. Some whisper this design holds coded knowledge, a mathematical language linking earth to heaven. Others see it as a meditation made tangible, where every step quiets the mind, drawing walkers deeper into reflection. Even today, visitors pause to walk its ancient path, proving that some labyrinths aren't puzzles to solve, but invitations to slow down, breathe, and listen to the echoes of centuries underfoot. Along the windswept shores of Sweden, where the Baltic Sea crashes against rocky outcrops, lie ghostly stone spirals known as Trojeborg's silent puzzles left by Viking hands over 1,000 years ago. Unlike the grand labyrinths of cathedrals or palaces, these are humble yet haunting, low walls of gathered stones coiled like serpents sleeping in the grass. Walk their paths today, and you'll feel the salt-tang breeze that once filled the sails of dragon ships, because these may be more than just ritual sites. Some scholars argue these labyrinths were Viking navigational tools, earthly copies of the treacherous sea currents they braved. Imagine a young sailor tracing the winding pattern with his finger before setting out, memorizing the twists as if they charted hidden reefs or whirlpools. But others whisper darker purposes. Folklore claims these spirals trapped malevolent spirits, confusing them so thoroughly they couldn't follow fishermen home. The designs eerily resemble ancient fish traps, their narrowing paths meant to guide, then ensnare. Even the name Trojeborg hints at layers of myth, echoing the legendary walls of Troy. Yet perhaps the truth is woven from all these threads. Vikings were masters of both practicality and mysticism. A labyrinth could be a prayer for calm seas, a map in stone, and a spiritual snare all at once. One thing's certain, these silent stone coils still guard their secrets as closely as the Baltic guards its shipwrecks. Beneath the vast turquoise skies of the American Southwest, where mesas rise like ancient altars, the Hopi people traced sacred patterns into the earth, not merely as art but as living prayers. Their medicine wheel labyrinths, intricate circles of stone and sand, were maps of the cosmos and the human soul intertwined. Unlike the towering cathedrals of Europe or the mythic corridors of Knossos, these designs were deceptively simple, concentric rings radiating outward like ripples in a desert pool, each curve mirroring the cyclical dance of the stars. To walk these paths was to step into a ritual older than memory. The Hopi believed the labyrinth's turns aligned with celestial events, solstices marked by shadows stretching across specific stones, lunar cycles encoded in the spacing of each circuit. Healers and seekers would traverse these spirals barefoot, feeling the earth's pulse beneath them, their footsteps syncing with rhythms older than time. Some traditions say the labyrinth's center became a threshold, a place where the veil between worlds grew thin, where visions flickered like heat on the horizon. What's striking is how these designs echo universal truths found oceans apart. The same sacred geometry that shaped Chartres' labyrinth appears here, refined by hands that never crossed paths with medieval masons. Perhaps it's no coincidence that both cultures saw these patterns as bridges between earthly and divine. Even today, the stones whisper a lesson modernity often forgets. Sometimes the straightest path to understanding is a circle. Deep in the rolling hills of central Italy, where cypress trees stand like silent sentinels, the Etruscans chiseled their dead into the earth, not in simple graves but in sprawling underground labyrinths. Step into one of these tombs today, and you'll find corridors that twist like serpents, their walls adorned with vibrant frescoes of feasting and dancing, as if death were merely another banquet. But look closer, those inviting doorways lead nowhere, their frames carved with deliberate deception. This wasn't just artistry, it was strategy. The Etruscans saw the afterlife as a perilous journey, a maze where only the virtuous could find peace. False passages and hidden traps weren't just defenses against thieves, they were tests for wandering spirits. Some scholars believe the tombs outmirrored the Etruscan underworld itself, a realm ruled by the god Ater, where every turn held divine judgment. And then there are the inscriptions. Etched into the stones are lines of text in a language so obscure, even Rome's greatest scholars couldn't decipher it after conquering Etruria. A few words resemble Greek, others Latin, but their true meaning dissolves like smoke. What's haunting is how these tombs defy time. While the Etruscans themselves faded into history, their labyrinths endured, preserving not just bones, but an entire philosophy of death. The false doors, perhaps invitations for the soul to keep moving. The looping corridors, a reminder that the journey didn't end at the grave, and those untranslated whispers on the walls. They still wait, patient as the dead, for someone to unlock their stories. Far to the north, where the Arctic wind howls across frozen islands, lies one of history's most resilient riddles, the Bolshoi-Zayatsky Labyrinths. Scattered across Russia's Solovetsky archipelago, these ancient stone spirals emerge from the tundra like frost-covered fingerprints. Built over 4,000 years ago by Neolithic hands, they outlasted empires, yet their creators left no manuals, only silent coils of boulders resisting time itself. Some believe these were practical tools, massive fish traps designed to exploit the tides, their winding walls guiding salmon into enclosures during high water. Others see them as cosmic maps, their curves mirroring the sun's path during solstices, a stone almanac for people attuned to the sky's rhythms, the most haunting theory. That they were spiritual snares built to contain restless spirits or confusion, malevolent forces with endless twists. What's remarkable is their preservation. Permafrost acts as a time capsule, keeping the stones undisturbed while civilizations rose and fell to the south. Archaeologists note how each labyrinth shares the same intricate blueprint despite being built centuries apart, suggesting these weren't random designs, but carefully guarded knowledge passed through generations. Yet the truth remains elusive, buried deeper than Arctic ice. These aren't just puzzles from the past, they're mirrors reflecting our own longing to understand the minds that walked here before history began writing its story. High on the sunlit walls of Lucca Cathedral, where shadows dance across ancient stone, hides a labyrinth unlike any other. Not a grand floor mosaic or sprawling underground tunnel, just a simple circle no larger than a dinner plate, etched with such precision it stops visitors mid-step. This unassuming carving holds layers of mystery, its 11 tight coils spiraling inward like a whispered secret frozen in stone. Legend claims a returning crusader carved this puzzle in the 13th century, his hands still trembling from battles in Jerusalem. The Latin inscription around it challenges you. This is the labyrinth built by Daedalus of Crete. No one who enters will escape except through faith. But that's where the riddles begin. Why would a medieval soldier reference a pagan myth? Some scholars believe the tight, almost claustrophobic design mirrors the Crusaders' own tortuous journeys, zigzagging across deserts, trapped between faith and fury. Others argue the labyrinth isn't a trap at all, but a coded map to hidden knowledge, its turns aligning with constellations visible only in the Holy Land. What's fascinating is how this small engraving defies time. While other labyrinths invite walking, this one pulls you into stillness, demanding you trace its path with your eyes alone. Is it a confession of wartime sins etched where only God could see, a warning about the perilous allure of holy wars, or perhaps a private compass guiding the carver's soul back to some lost truth? The stone keeps its silence, but the questions linger like candle smoke in the cathedral's hushed aisles. One thing's certain, this tiny maze proves that sometimes the greatest mysteries fit in the palm of your hand. Carved into the sun-warmed rocks of Italy's Valcamonica Valley, a silent story unfolds, one etched in stone more than 10,000 years before the first pharaoh ruled Egypt. These aren't random scratches, but intricate labyrinths spiraling across the alpine cliffs like frozen fingerprints of the Neolithic mind. Unlike the towering structures of Knossos or Chartres, these designs are deceptively simple: concentric circles, looping spirals, and zigzagging paths worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. Yet their simplicity is their mystery. Some researchers believe these petroglyphs were practical guides, blueprints for constructing hunting traps, their winding paths mimicking animal migration routes. Others see them as sacred maps, tracing the soul's journey through the afterlife or mirroring constellations visible only to ancient eyes. What's striking is how often these patterns repeat across Europe, identical spirals appearing in Scotland's standing stones, Portugal's dolmens, and Sardinia's tombs. Were these the prehistoric equivalent of a shared language, passed between tribes like a whispered secret, Climb closer and you'll notice something curious. Many labyrinths cluster near water sources or caves, places where the earth itself seems transitional. Perhaps they marked thresholds between worlds, or served as ritual spaces where shamans traced the grooves with their fingers, entering trance states to commune with spirits. The rocks offer no answers, only the tantalizing certainty that for our ancestors, these coils weren't just art. They were anchors to the invisible, carved by hands that understood the world in ways we're still straining to decipher. Beneath the rolling green hills of Zhejiang province, where farmers tend to flooded rice paddies, lies one of China's most enigmatic wonders, the Longyou Caves. Discovered in 1992 by a curious villager draining a pond, these aren't natural caverns, but a sprawling man-made labyrinth chiseled with astonishing precision. Step inside and the scale overwhelms. Towering pillars, arched ceilings, and room after room of walls polished so smooth they glimmer like wet silk under torchlight. Every angle, every corridor speaks of meticulous planning, yet not a single scroll, carving, or historical record mentions their existence. Who would command such a feat? The sheer volume of excavated sandstone, over 1 million cubic meters, hints at imperial resources, possibly the Qin or Han dynasties. But emperors built monuments to be seen, not buried. Some scholars propose these were secret granaries, keeping vital supplies hidden from invaders, though no trace of stored goods remains. Others point to the acoustics, how whispers bounce eerily between chambers, suggesting ritual spaces for forbidden rites. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in the walls themselves, intricate tool marks following the same consistent pattern across all 36 caves, as if a single master architect oversaw every stroke. What chills the bones isn't just the silence of history, but the lingering question, why seal such perfection underground? Were they hiding something from the world or protecting the world from what lay inside? The caves guard their secrets as closely now as they did 2 millennia ago, leaving us to wander their shadows, piecing together echoes. Among the golden deserts of the American Southwest, where the Gila River whispers through cottonwood trees, the Pima people weave wisdom into reeds, not with ink or stone, but with the rhythmic dance of coiled baskets. Each spiral pattern isn't mere decoration. It's a living map of existence stitched with the patience of generations. Unlike the towering labyrinths of Europe or the cryptic caves of China, these sacred designs unfold in the palm of your hand, their fibers still smelling of sun-warmed earth. Start at the outer edge, the beginning of the journey where the willow strands twist inward like the first steps of a child. Every tight coil mirrors life's unexpected turns, some smooth, others knotted with challenges. The Pima speak of these weavings as the path that teaches, where rushing only tangles the thread. What's extraordinary is how the basket's center, compact, flawless, reveals the destination, not an exit but a state of understanding. Elders say completing a pattern requires the same focus as living well, mindful hands following ancient rhythms, each stitch a lesson in balance, but there's deeper alchemy here. The dyes themselves tell stories: black from mesquite sap for resilience, red from crushed desert blossoms for vitality. Some baskets hide spirit breaks, intentional imperfections reminding us that no journey is without flaws. And if you listen closely to the weavers, they'll share how these designs once guided rituals, their labyrinths acting as portals where prayers traveled from hand to heart. Today, as modern life races forward, these coiled masterpieces endure quiet teachers, proving that sometimes the most profound truths aren't carved in stone but woven with grace. Beneath the sun-baked island of Malta, where the Mediterranean laps against limestone cliffs, darkness holds a secret older than the pyramids. Descend into the Hal Saflini Hypogeum, a 3-level labyrinth carved entirely underground by Neolithic hands 5,000 years ago. This isn't just a tomb or temple, it's an architectural whisper from a lost civilization. The walls curve like the ribs of some great stone beast, their ochre-painted spirals still glowing faintly after millennia. Step into the oracle chamber and a shiver runs down your spine, not from the cool air but from the uncanny acoustics. Speak softly, and your voice amplifies, echoing through the tunnels as if the earth itself is answering. Scholars still grapple with the purpose of these sonic wonders. Some believe priestesses used the resonance to commune with ancestors, their chants bending sound into something spectral. Others point to the solstice alignments, how sunlight pierces certain corridors only on the longest day of the year, illuminating carved goddess figures with theatrical precision. The most haunting theory, that the Hypogeum was both womb and tomb, a place where the living sought visions while the dead rested in niches shaped like curled sleepers. What's chilling is the silence that followed. Around 2500 BC, Malta's temple builders vanished. No war, no famine, just empty shelters and half-finished carvings. Did they abandon their gods, or did the labyrinth swallow them whole? The stones won't say, but stand here long enough in the damp hush, and you might hear it, the faintest hum, like a song trapped in the rock, waiting for someone to remember the words. In the shifting sands of Egypt's Fayum oasis, where the Nile's waters once fed lush gardens, lies the ghostly echo of a structure so magnificent it left even Herodotus speechless. The Hawara Labyrinth, a vast multi-leveled marvel built by Pharaoh Amenemhat III nearly 4,000 years ago, was said to dwarf the pyramids in both scale and mystery. Ancient historians marveled at its 3,000 rooms, their walls lined with polished granite and hieroglyphs gleaming under torchlight. Herodotus claimed visiting priests refused to reveal its secrets, whispering only that it held passages that turned back on themselves like the coils of a serpent. Today, the site appears as little more than a weathered foundation, its grandeur swallowed by time and sand. But beneath that unassuming surface, modern technology has begun peeling back the layers. Ground-penetrating radar reveals tantalizing anomalies, hidden corridors, chambers untouched for millennia, perhaps even the pharaoh's lost burial vault. Archaeologists debate whether this was a sprawling funerary complex, a bureaucratic nerve center for the kingdom, or something far more profound. The labyrinth's design, allegedly mirroring the underworld itself, suggests Amenemhat III didn't just want a tomb, he built a portal. What's haunting is how little survives above ground. The Roman historian Strabo described a labyrinth so bewildering that visitors needed guides to escape. Now, even the stones have gone silent, quarried over centuries for other buildings, their stories scattered across Egypt, yet the sand still whispers. Recent scans show anomalies too precise to be natural, hinting at undiscovered halls waiting to tell their tales. Could the labyrinth's greatest secret still lie buried, guarded not by traps, but by the patient silence of the desert itself? One truth remains: some puzzles aren't meant to stay solved. Stretching across Peru's bone-dry Pampa de Nazca, where rain seldom falls and the wind barely whispers, lies one of archaeology's most mesmerizing enigmas, the Nazca Labyrinth. These aren't mere scratches on the desert canvas, but vast, elaborate geoglyphs carved so precisely they defy logic. From the ground, they appear as faint grooves in the rust-colored earth, but soar overhead, and the truth reveals itself. A sprawling network of winding paths, spirals, and interlocking circles, some stretching longer than a football field. Unlike the famous animal figures nearby, these designs don't depict creatures. They invite movement, pulling the eye along their serpentine routes like an invisible hand guiding a pilgrim. The mystery deepens when you consider the how. Without satellites or drones, the Nazca people etched these patterns between 200 BC and 600 AD, aligning them with celestial events and underground water channels. Some researchers believe these labyrinths were walked during sacred ceremonies, bare feet tracing the grooves as prayers for rain. each turn a plea to the gods who controlled the life-giving waters. Others argue they doubled as astronomical calendars, their curves mirroring constellations visible only during specific seasons, the most haunting theory. That they were sonic maps designed to amplify chants or drumbeats during rituals, transforming the desert itself into a resonating chamber. What's astonishing is their preservation. The Nazca's secret lay in the desert's cruelty. The same arid conditions that threatened their survival also safeguarded their art. A thin layer of iron oxide coats the stones, hardening under centuries of sun into a protective shield. Yet for all their resilience, the labyrinths offer no written clues, only silent invitations. Modern visitors who walk them describe an eerie sensation, as if the path itself remembers the weight of ancient footsteps, each curve whispering a question we're still learning to ask. Were these sacred journeys cosmic blueprints, or something far more intimate, a desert people's love letter to a landscape as harsh as it was holy? The lines keep their secrets, but the wind carries echoes of those who once walked with purpose under the same relentless sky. In the shadow of Mycenaean's great stone walls, where Agamemnon once ruled, tiny artifacts tell a story far bigger than their size. Pressed into clay no larger than a coin, labyrinthine spirals curl with hypnotic precision. Mycenaean seal stones, crafted over 3,000 years ago. These weren't mere decorations, they were keys to an ancient system of power. Roll one across wet clay, and it leaves behind an intricate maze pattern, perhaps marking shipments of olive oil or grain, turning administration into art. But look closer. The repetition of these designs across palaces and temples hints at something deeper, a symbolic language where every twist might signify authority, protection, or divine favor. Some seals bear Linear B script, Europe's earliest written language, though the words remain stubbornly opaque. A few deciphered syllables suggest inventories or dedications, but the full message lingers just out of reach. What's fascinating is how these miniature labyrinths mirror the grand corridors of Knossos, as if the Mycenaeans distilled Crete's mythic maze into something pocket-sized and practical. Were they bureaucratic stamps ensuring no one tampered with royal supplies, or talismans, their coiled paths believed to trap chaos and keep order intact? One particularly striking seal shows a labyrinth encircled by wild bulls, a vivid echo of the Minotaur legend, yet here the beast is restrained, controlled. It's a whisper of how these cultures transformed myth into metaphor, turning fear into a stamp of governance. The stone's weight in the hand feels deliberate, a tactile reminder that in the Bronze Age, even the smallest objects could hold kingdoms together, or guard secrets were still piecing together, one fragile clay impression at a time. Tucked between olive groves and crumbling limestone walls on Crete, the ruins of Gortina hold a labyrinth unlike any other, one carved not to conceal monsters but to dictate the rules of an entire civilization. Here, the stones themselves speak in measured, unflinching Greek, their letters spiraling outward in a continuous helix across the ancient courthouse walls. This isn't myth, it's jurisprudence frozen in stone. The great inscription of Gortina, dating back to the 5th century BC, unfolds like a legal scroll turned three-dimensional, a 12-column testament to contracts, inheritances, and even the rights of enslaved people, all etched with deliberate, winding precision. What's striking isn't just the content, but the form. The laws don't read left to right like ordinary text. Instead, they snake back and forth, Boustrophedon style, mimicking the path of an ox plowing a field, each turn demanding the reader physically pivot to follow. Some scholars argue this mirrored the twists of justice itself, where every case required careful navigation. Others see it as a clever deterrent, forcing litigants to slow down, to absorb each word rather than skim for loopholes. The laws themselves reveal a society striving for balance, fines scaled to wealth, protections for divorced women, even consequences for seducing a slave by trickery or persuasion. Yet the true genius lies in what's unspoken. Unlike the punitive Hammurabi's code, Gortina's labyrinth favors restitution over retaliation. A thief repays double, a runaway spouse forfeits their property but isn't stoned. The very design whispers a radical idea. That order isn't about terror but about paths to resolution. Today, as your fingers trace the same grooves where ancient hands once paused to debate fairness, the maze asks its quietest question: was this meant to confound or to teach that every complex conflict has a way through if you're willing to follow the lines? Beneath the shade of orange trees and the murmur of hidden fountains, medieval Spain's Islamic gardens wove mathematics into magic. Step into the courtyard of Granada's Alhambra, where every path is a carefully calculated poem, narrow channels of water crisscrossing like liquid geometry, myrtle hedges trimmed into tessellating patterns that pull the eye inward. This wasn't just landscaping, it was paradise mapped onto earth, a labyrinth designed not to confuse but to awaken the soul. Water flowed as the central metaphor, each channel representing the four rivers of Islamic paradise, of milk, honey, wine, and water, their precise angles echoing the celestial calculations of astronomers. The gardens whispered a truth their creators held sacred, that beauty and logic were two sides of the same coin. Even the placement of cypress trees followed invisible equations, their heights proportional to the courtyard's dimensions, creating harmonious shadows that shifted with the sun like slow-moving sundials. What's mesmerizing is how these spaces balanced artistry with purpose. The labyrinths weren't arbitrary, they were cooling systems, their winding paths guiding breezes to counteract Andalusia's summer heat. Scholars debate whether the designs held deeper Sufi symbolism, the endless turns mirroring the seeker's journey toward divine truth. One clue lingers in the tiles, star patterns repeating infinitely, suggesting that to walk these gardens was to traverse a cosmos in miniature. Today, standing in the Patio de los Leones, you can still trace a finger along calligraphy carved 8 centuries ago, verses describing paradise as a garden beneath which rivers flow. The real marvel, how these spaces outlasted kingdoms, their quiet elegance proving that some labyrinths aren't meant to be solved but savored. Here, logic and wonder shared the same soil, rooting an idea that still blooms, that heaven isn't just a destination but a path walked with intention. Beneath the quiet vineyards of Tuscany, where sunlight dances across rolling hills, a shadow world waits. The Clusium Labyrinth, a sprawling network of tunnels carved by Etruscan hands nearly 3,000 years ago, descends into the earth like roots seeking forbidden knowledge. Unlike the ornate tombs of Gortina or the celestial gardens of Alhambra, this place thrums with quiet menace. Its walls, polished smooth by centuries of touching hands, bear inscriptions in a language so old even the Romans struggled to decipher them. Ancient historians spun terrifying tales of this subterranean maze. Dionysius of Halicarnassus wrote of deep chambers where priests communed with spirits, their voices echoing through corridors that no living man should walk twice. Modern archaeologists have found eerie evidence to match small alcoves lining the tunnels, each holding traces of burned offerings, charred grains, fractured pottery, even the delicate bones of songbirds. Were these gifts to guide the dead or to appease something lingering in the dark? The tunnel's design deepens the mystery. Some passages slope downward at precise angles, mirroring constellations visible only during burial rites. Others end abruptly in what researchers call false doors, solid walls meticulously carved to look like entrances, perhaps meant to confuse vengeful spirits. One chilling theory suggests the entire labyrinth was an initiation site, where elite Etruscans underwent ritual trials to prove their worthiness for the afterlife. Yet the most haunting detail lies in the silence. Unlike Egypt's decorated tombs or Malta's echoing hypogee, Clusium's tunnels bear no grand murals or treasures. Just rough symbols scratched into stone, a spiraling serpent here, a three-pronged fork there, each a potential cipher to a belief system lost to time. Standing in these damp corridors, you realize the Etruscans didn't just build a path to the underworld. They crafted a mirror, forcing us to confront our own darkest question. When the final turn comes, will we recognize the way? Rising like a stone forest against the sky of northern France, Amiens Cathedral holds a ghost in its grand nave, the memory of a labyrinth that once guided penitents toward redemption. While Chartres' famous maze survives intact, Amiens' octagonal wonder was ripped from its floor in the 18th century, leaving only cryptic sketches and whispered theories behind. What made this design so special and so threatening that authorities chose destruction over preservation? The original labyrinth, laid in 1288, wasn't just a path for prayer. Its eight-sided form broke tradition, echoing medieval fascination with sacred geometry, the octagon symbolizing resurrection, its angles aligning with celestial events. Pilgrims would shuffle along its winding route on their knees, their physical struggle mirroring spiritual purification. But look closer at historical records and puzzling details emerge. At its center stood not a Christian emblem, but a brass plate engraved with the names of the cathedral's architects, their faces framed by zodiac signs. Was this vanity or a coded tribute to the sacred mathematics that shaped Gothic spires? When church officials ordered the labyrinth's removal in 1825, they claimed its intricate turns distracted worshippers. Yet fragments of correspondence suggest deeper fears. One bishop's letter warns of unwise men tracing patterns not meant for common eyes, hinting that the maze's geometry held esoteric secrets, perhaps architectural harmonics or hidden cosmological maps. Others suspect political motives, noting how revolutionary fervor swept France shortly after its destruction, toppling old symbols of power. Today, a simple brass line marks where pilgrims once walked. But stand in the nave at noon on the summer solstice, and sunlight pierces the rose window just so, casting a fleeting octagon of colored light upon the stones, as if the labyrinth never truly left, only learned to hide in plain sight. Some truths, it seems, refuse to stay buried. Nestled among the olive groves of southern Greece, a single sun-baked clay tablet holds the key to a mystery scribbled in haste over 3,000 years ago. Discovered in the ashes of the Palace of Nestor at Pylos, this fragile rectangle, no larger than your palm, bears a labyrinth sketched beside symbols of Europe's earliest deciphered script, Linear B. But this isn't just a doodle. The precision of its intersecting lines suggests something deliberate, a blueprint, a sacred sigil, or perhaps even a royal signature pressed into wet clay before fire swallowed the palace whole. What's fascinating is how this tiny artifact mirrors the sprawling complexity of the palace itself. Excavations reveal a warren of storerooms, courtyards, and corridors twisting like the tablet's inked lines, almost as if the builder carried the maze in his mind before shaping it into stone. Linear B tablets nearby list quantities of olive oil and chariot wheels, mundane inventories that make the labyrinth's presence even more intriguing. Was it a seal marking special shipments, a ritual object to ward off evil, or something more personal, an architect's rough sketch, his fingers tracing paths for workers to follow? Then there's the script itself. Among the dry accounting records, one phrase stands out: "To the Lady of the Labyrinth." No context, no explanation, just these words beside the twisting design. Some scholars whisper of a forgotten goddess, her worship tied to sacred patterns. Others see a political cipher, proving Pylos' ties to Minoan Crete, where labyrinth myths thrived. But perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in the tablet's edges, fingerprints fossilized in clay, left by someone who handled it as the palace burned. Today, the tablet sits quietly in a museum case, its labyrinth smaller than a child's drawing. Yet it raises colossal questions. Did Bronze Age rulers walk real mazes we've yet to uncover? Or were they already weaving myth into governance, using symbols to tame chaos? The clay keeps its secrets, but the lines remain an invitation to wander, and to remember how fragile the threads of history can be. In the mist-wrapped hills of central Italy, where vineyards cling to ancient slopes, the town of Alatri guards a secret older than Rome itself. Its massive stone walls rise like the work of mythic hands, cyclopean blocks fitted together with such inhuman precision that even after millennia, not a sliver of light passes between them. These aren't mere fortifications, they're a labyrinth in plain sight, their trapezoidal gates and zigzagging passages forming a puzzle no archaeologist has fully decoded. Walk through Porta San Benedetto, the most famous of these gateways, and you'll feel the weight of the enigma. The stones curve inward like a keyhole, their edges beveled to interlock without mortar, a technique so advanced Renaissance architects later dubbed it polygonal masonry. Local folklore insists only giants could have lifted these boulders, whispering of a vanished race called the Pelasgians who built with the strength of gods. But the real mystery lies in the layout. Unlike defensive walls designed for archers or soldiers, Alatri's zigzagging corridors seem almost ritualistic, funneling movement in deliberate ceremonial patterns. Modern researchers offer competing theories. Some argue the walls formed an astronomical calendar, their angles aligning with solstice sunrises. Others point to strange acoustic properties, how whispers bounce off certain stones with eerie clarity, suggesting ceremonies where voices might have summoned echoes like unseen spirits. The most compelling clue, beneath the town's cathedral lies a hidden chamber lined with identical masonry, its ceiling carved with a labyrinthine spiral. Whether sanctuary, fortress, or gateway, one truth endures. These stones were meant to last, their silent perfection challenging every assumption about the so-called primitive cultures that came before empires. Stand here at dusk when the setting sun turns the rocks to molten gold, and you'll understand why scholars still debate their purpose. The walls refuse to confess. They simply stand, unmoved by time, as if waiting for someone to ask the right question or perhaps to realize that some labyrinths aren't meant to be solved, only witnessed. Where the Atlantic crashes against Cornwall's ragged cliffs, a weathered stone holds a secret older than the castle ruins looming above it. The Tintagel Labyrinth, carved sometime between the 6th and 12th centuries, spirals outward like a frozen ripple in time. Its 7 concentric rings don't lead to a center, they are the center, an endless knot mirroring the Celtic belief that all journeys eventually circle back to their beginnings. This isn't just artistry, it's archaeology layered with legend. The carving sits perilously close to Tintagel's cliff edge, where medieval chroniclers placed King Arthur's dramatic conception, a stormy night, a disguised other Pendragon, and Merlin's magic-weaving destiny. But here's the twist. While the castle ruins are decidedly 13th century, the labyrinth's design echoes far older traditions. Its loops mirror Bronze Age petroglyphs found across Britain, suggesting the site's sacred significance long before Arthurian tales took root. Some scholars argue this was a pilgrim's pause, a place to trace the path with one's fingers before braving the sea crossing to Ireland. Others see knightly symbolism in its 7 circuits, matching the 7 virtues of chivalry. The most tantalizing theory, that it served as a territorial marker, signaling Tintagel's importance as a post-Roman stronghold where history blurred into myth. The cliff's natural cave system, rumored in folklore to be Merlin's sanctum, hums with the same resonance as the labyrinth's curves, both seeming to whisper that some stories aren't meant to unravel cleanly. Stand here at sunset when golden light catches the grooves worn smooth by centuries of curious hands, and you'll feel it. the thrum of a place where land, sea, and legend collide. Whether pilgrimage path or royal signature, the stone refuses certainty, much like Arthur himself, forever poised between flesh and fable, his truth as shifting as the tide below. From the sun-baked stones of Egypt to the misty shores of Cornwall, these 22 labyrinths reveal more than ancient engineering. They're mirrors reflecting humanity's deepest questions. Whether carved by Viking hands or inlaid beneath cathedral floors, each design whispers the same truth. Our ancestors didn't just build paths to get lost. They crafted journeys to be found by gods, by knowledge, or by their own unraveling fears. The real magic lies in how these structures transcend time. A medieval pilgrim tracing Chartres Labyrinth with their knees sought the same clarity a Hopi healer found in desert stone spirals. Bronze Age seal stones and Neolithic petroglyphs, separated by continents, echo identical patterns, as if some universal rhythm pulsed beneath human creativity. Even the materials tell stories, granite enduring like pharaonic ambitions, reeds weaving transient wisdom, cave walls humming with forgotten chants. As we leave these corridors behind, one thought lingers. The greatest maze isn't made of walls or hedges, but of history's endless turns. Every discovery, a fingerprint in clay, a solstice alignment, a whispered myth, is another thread in the labyrinth we're all still walking. Which of these ancient puzzles spoke to you? Was it the Minotaur's haunting legend, the Arctic's frozen spirals, or perhaps a silent cave waiting for its song to be remembered? Drop your favorite in the comments and let's keep unraveling these mysteries together. Until next time, stay curious and may all your paths lead somewhere extraordinary.